People have criticised him for sure for sticking to this system that feels like it's not perhaps the best use of certain players in his squad. But I agree with you that he's actually showing adaptability. There's a kind of paradox to us saying that, because he is doing different things within games. And the second balls thing, it feels like that's something that he's learned almost by being in the Premier League.
Yeah.
I know he was a player for a long time and obviously had success with Sporting, but he started to mention it in press conferences after a little bit of time being here. Set pieces he mentioned a lot of as well.
Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. This is Inside United with, of course, Laurie Whitwell from The Athletic. No Jay Motti today, he's on holiday, but let's be honest, we don't need him.
Well, he's not going to watch this, is he? So we can slag him off till our heart's content.
Probably going to get a text from him saying that he has watched it and that he's upset, but who cares? He should have been here. Do you know what I mean?
He should have been. Part-timer.
Yeah. And also, of all the weeks to miss as well, United have actually won a big game in the Premier League.
Did he watch the game?
He watched the game. We watched it together.
Oh, okay, you were here.
At this very table.
Okay.
So he knows, he's seen the lot.
Okay.
He gets it. But there's loads to talk about. We're going to talk about the Liverpool game, obviously. A little bit of sort of reaction to that, not just from us, but from how things are feeling behind the scenes a little bit. Also, look at some players in particular. I think Lammens is worth talking about. I think potentially Mateus Cunha and some of the other sort of big performers there. Also, we've talked a lot about Amorim, of course, and I think rightly so. Let's have a little look at the state of play, because you could argue, other than the first few weeks he came in, maybe the safest he's been in certainly a long time at Manchester United. It feels as though there's actually a bit of momentum behind him for probably the first time, as I said before, and maybe a little look at some transfers as well. Has there been anything on the radar for January? Because there's all sorts going on there. Maybe there might be a title. There might be a title charge at play here.
You're thinking they might need to inject the squad.
I might have gone too far. First of all, Laurie, how are you? How are you?
Maintain that momentum. Yes, no, I'm good, thank you. Very good. No, I was at Anfield on Sunday, so that was a nice change from the previous visits that I've had there. I've never seen United win in person at Anfield. I've been there as a fan and as a journalist. Some traumatic occasions.
It's been pretty bad.
It was a nice response to just see two teams going at it. I thought it was a really fun game to watch, even from a neutral point of view. And some drama at the end and some great scenes with the players and the fans and Ruben Amorim in particular. That obviously is a huge win for him. So, lots to get into. But an enjoyable afternoon.
Just on the Liverpool game then. I think everyone pretty much played well. I know Dalot got a bit of stick for his first half performance in particular, but I think second half he was actually a lot better. But it felt as though we saw, especially with some of the newer transfers, I think Cunha in particular and Mbeumo as well, you saw what they should be bringing to Man United and what they were brought in to do. Because I think those last 15 minutes, Cunha decided, whenever the ball is near me, I'm keeping it for as long as I can. I'm not letting a Liverpool player get near it. We are going to win this game. And I think that, I don't mean to necessarily bring Garnacho in as a reason to criticise him, but by comparison, maybe the person playing that out there last season would have been Garnacho, who's much more known for risk taking, for no matter, every time he gets the ball, he's trying to go past you. I felt as though it was a more grown-up performance from a lot of United's attackers, and even in Mbeumo's goal, it's just to be that clinical. How many big games have we had where you miss that first chance, Liverpool score theirs, and all of a sudden the game's essentially lost? It feels as though we've got some slightly more kind of cool and calm customers in the United team now.
Yeah, I certainly think they're quite cool. I mean, you've seen their fashion sense. It's kind of rivals yours, Joe, actually, for high quality calibre.
Thank you.
They're Premier League ready players, aren't they? That's what United bought. And I think in hindsight, if they can continue in this vein, I think they'll look back on the money paid for those guys as actually pretty decent value, really. I know that the Cunha deal happening as soon as it did with the release clause set the tone for the Bryan Mbeumo negotiation with Brentford, and they dragged on because Brentford had that as a benchmark for the player that they thought was better than Cunha, or at least certainly had posted better numbers, really, which is fair enough. But ultimately, United are bringing in two players at their peak years, both 26 now, I think. So, you've got these guys that know what it takes, I think, to play in the Premier League and keep going sort of minute after minute in this high-intensity environment. Two different kind of performances. And I know Cunha still hasn't actually got a goal or an assist for United, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels that he's certainly contributing hugely to the team. I mean, his selection was probably the surprise, maybe. And I know that he's, been worthy of inclusion, but you just thought with Sesko getting those 2 goals in his last 2 starts that he would continue. potentially also with the direct attacks that we felt that United were going to make. And so I thought they'd maybe play a different way when I saw Cunha in the team, but no, actually they're going to play the same kind of way, but just allow Liverpool to get the head on the ball first, and then we'll pick up the second balls. And they were all ready. They were like sort of coiled springs, weren't they, to kind of pounce on that, and then some nice passing interchanges. That kind of way of playing, I think, does really rely on good first touch and ability to wriggle out of tight spaces, and both from Mbeumo and Cunha have got that. There was actually, I think, a little bit in the closing stages. Cunha tried, certainly one in my mind, a pass to Sesko to break the lines, and he was offside in the end, Sesko, and you're sort of thinking, actually, could you have held onto the ball there, Cunha? But in that scenario, it was actually quite a safe pass to attempt. It would have made, if he'd got on the end of it and scored, it would have been 3-1, game over. So there was the reward was there. The risk was fairly minimal because United were in shape in the rest of the team. So even though Liverpool got hold of possession, it was fine. And as you say there, the fact that he was able to get on the ball, muscle his way into fouls, into successful dribbles. I did actually look at the stats for it, and he only won 2 fouls in the game, which kind of feels like he won loads, but that's what the numbers are saying. And also only completed 2 dribbles, which again isn't anything particularly outstanding from him. I think he did 4 against Arsenal, for example, on the opening day. But it just felt doing it in that kind of environment when United are leading a game and needed him to get them over the line, I thought was really, really important from him.
I think as well, like with stats, like, so you talk about fouls and dribbles. One thing that stands out in my mind was that one on the sort of our left-hand touchline where he had a man behind him, a man in front of him. He goes to ground, could have been given a foul but wasn't, so isn't going to tick that box in terms of a foul won. He then gets back up, takes the ball kind of back off the opposition and plays the pass inside. So he sort of dribbled around players, but because he never went past someone, it probably doesn't count as a dribble either. So you can do almost everything, but without actually technically ticking the stats box. And I think, obviously, it's all funny to laugh at Florian Wirtz being 009 or whatever it is. But realistically, like you said, he's had a bigger impact than his 0 goals and assists would suggest, and then the stats would suggest. And little bits like that are good examples of it, where not every pass is as easy as every other pass. Not every ball recovery is as important as every other ball recovery. So people can do things in a minimalist or kind of less showy way, but actually what they did and the time they did it is incredibly important.
Well, it's a grown-up performance, isn't it?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
United have suffered from that in previous times where they've conceded goals back-to-back in quick succession, and it's actually overwhelmed them, and they've fragmented. Just look at the 7-0 at Anfield. They lost their heads in that game for sure, and whereas they conceded against Liverpool here late on, having led for nearly enough the entire game, you're sort of thinking, actually, is this a story we've seen before? And the atmosphere was right up at that point. The Liverpool players were swarming forwards, and actually having that players like that in that way of thinking, just to get back on the ball, get a bit of possession, then build your way into the game, and then obviously get the winner was hugely vital for it, and a real sign of something to grab hold of and build on. I know not every game's going to be like that for sure, but doing it away at Anfield, I know Liverpool are vulnerable at the moment, but I think that should give them a lot of belief going forwards.
They're vulnerable, but it's first time in 400 days or something that they lost at home in the league. So there's been a bit vulnerable, but they're still one of the best teams in the league. And over the last 5 years or what it was since we'd won there, they'd been just as vulnerable in the past. They'd had spells where they weren't so good. We'd finished above them. I think we were above them in the league, or we certainly finished above them when we lost 7-0. Yeah, we finished third that year, and I think they finished fourth. So it's not just a case of they've always been better than us, and we're this was a one-off. Even in the past, we've struggled there, regardless of the external. So I think that's a big point. Just on Amorim then, because everything sort of has to get funneled through the manager. Everything. He's the filter that football exists in at Manchester United, because it's his name on the above the door and all that in terms of the first team. You mentioned about this second balls thing. Obviously, winning second balls is, I used to get told that at Sunday League under 18s. Win your second balls, win your battles. He's your man. If he wins today, then I'll bring in you off. Whatever, those sort of basic pub team stuff. But then that got us the first goal. That sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it was. And you mentioned about players playing in tight spaces. Bruno realising, I'm going to have to flick this with my left foot because there was a man on the floor in front of him. It was McAllister, obviously. That all had to come together. to get that goal. So these things that may seem like basic, nothing things, we set up in a way where we could capitalise on that, and we were winning those second balls, especially for the first goal. Do you think that we saw some of Amorim's fingerprints on this win? Do you think that's why it sort of matters so much?
Yes, definitely. The tactical plan that he had clearly was designed for Liverpool specifically, so he obviously explained why he went for Cunha rather than Sesko in the game, because he felt that Liverpool's defenders, Van Dijk and Konate, would enjoy coming up against Sesko in the air and having that kind of physical contact, whereas actually let's remove that. Almost like you're a boxer maybe, and you're trying to punch at somebody that's just suddenly shifted out of position, and you're against a counter puncher rather than someone that's just going to keep walking forwards, like catching smoke or something, and you're like, oh, where's he gone? And so, and they didn't seem to adjust to that. I sort of thought maybe on occasion they could just let the ball, go back to the goalkeeper, but maybe the goal kicks or the kicks from Lammens were to a destination and distance that actually wouldn't have allowed that anyway, and would have maybe brought about potential for United to run in behind and chase those balls if they did let them bounce. So I thought that was a real smart tactical tweak by Amorim that Arne Slot clearly wasn't anticipating. I mean, he seemed very affronted by the idea that United would change their team.
It was odd, that, wasn't it? He seemed almost annoyed that we weren't playing into his hands.
Yeah.
Like, we went, I mean, he always plays Sesko, and now he's not playing Sesko. This is just great. Like, come on, mate. Your job is to predict or to react to these sorts of things. He did seem a little bit, maybe it's just that kind of straight Dutch talking.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that in there where he's seen something and just relays it. But he seemed annoyed about it, or at least, I don't know, a little bit put out by it, because... but then again, you do look at United's the way they started the season, and it was with Cunha up top, so it's actually probably a bigger amount of games that he started in that position than Sesko, because it was only 2 Premier League games that he started. I kind of feel that it's maybe he's just trying to divert a little bit maybe as well from his own teams and the issues that he's got clearly. But I thought it was smart by Amorim, and I think that's what he's getting at in terms of, because he said on the ball we weren't actually perfect. There was a few times there's certainly instances of players miskicking it or not picking the right pass and giving the ball away, but he said the small details were really important. And I think what he's referring to there is the fact that they knew they had this game plan, kick it long. So Lammens had, I think, 46 passes in the game. 45 of them were considered long passes, and the next highest number was Mamardashvili on 9. I think Liverpool had 47 combined total, so it was a real feature of the game. In fact, the one that he went sort of short with was a kind of bulleted one, I think, to Dolo, who then it kind of recycled it, and it ended up with Luke Shaw wriggling nicely away from Salah, and then it built into a chance that then was Bruno Fernandes hitting the post. So and that had a feature of it with Cunha's switch pass across to Ahmad. So that was something. As long as you had somebody that was able to, okay, we're close here, for example, on a second ball, or in this instance a goal kick or a pass out, and then the quick switch into space where you had Ahmad and Mbeumo as a kind of 2-on-1 almost. That was they really needed to harness that. And I also thought, the throw-ins was a key point. Jamie Carragher obviously mentioned it on Monday Night Football, but even being there, you could see that Kerkez, he gave the foul throw away. He kind of seemed uncertain as to what to do in the throw-in situation, because United went man for man on that, and ultimately Szoboszlai has to go back to the goalkeeper, and Mbeumo presses him, and that's where the second goal comes from. Again, with some nice interchanges of play. Sesko really neat feet, and that to slip Cunha through. So I think maybe that's what Amorim's getting at in terms of the finer details, and clearly that's something they've worked on the training pitch. So to your original point, I think that's why it has more credibility, more substance than a smash and grab would have done. Yeah,
because I think United led for, so what was it have been? 1 minute we scored, then it was, I think, 7 minutes between. So United led for 90 minutes of the 102 that were played or whatever. So you can't call that a smash and grab, even though it was a defensive performance.
Yeah.
They certainly weren't waiting for Liverpool to, or Liverpool didn't get a goal and United had to sort of do it on the break kind of thing. Just on the tactical side, like, I feel as though there's a lot being made of this kind of reverting back to the old school. So whether it be long throws, whether it be players kind of going along with their kicks, whether it be all this other. I think another thing that seems to be happening, set pieces, being a huge thing at the moment in terms of goal scoring. I feel like within the Pep sort of era, which I think we're probably still in, but maybe less so than a couple of years ago, it was like it felt like every team had to get your best 11. This is your system, and the whole point is your system is so good that it works in every single game. And there may be minor tweaks here and there, but typically we have one system and we play it every week and we win everything by playing this one system. I feel as though we're seeing a lot more malleability in coaches, especially younger coaches. You'll see like Amorim, obviously. I know that people are obsessed with this, like he's not changing the system, but the formation tweaks, the fact that sometimes we'll play with a 6'5" guy up front, sometimes we'll play with someone who's 5'9". Like, I think that is more of an old school thing where each game the manager sits down and goes, I've got 20 players and, you know, theoretically an infinite number of ways I can play. What is the best way to win this game? I feel like that's what we did against Liverpool. I think that seems to be happening more and more at the moment in the Premier League. Like, you look at Arsenal, half the time they will play as cagey as you can possibly play, get a goal, shut up shop. That's not what Pep would have done. That's not, you know, modern football. That's old school football. Where it's, I wonder if the next era of Premier League football is more along this line of like, actually, we've got so much computing power, brain power, kind of like data on opposition teams. The emphasis isn't on making a one-size-fits-all system. It's working out a game plan for each game. I almost feel like Amorim's sort of maybe future-proofing himself with that. I think that could be the next wave of what managers are doing. Not, we've just got to get the system that beats everyone. Do you think that's possible, or do you think I'm... I like Amorim more credit than he deserves? No,
I think he definitely deserves credit. I mean, you know, people have criticised him for sure for sticking to this system that feels like it's not perhaps the best use of certain players in his squad. But I agree with you that he's actually showing adaptability. There's a kind of paradox to us saying that, because he is doing different things within games. And the second balls thing, it feels like that's something that he's learned almost by being in the Premier League. Yeah. I know he was a player for a long time and obviously had success with Sporting, but he started to mention it in press conferences after a little bit of time being here. Set pieces he mentioned a lot of as well. And so I think he's then thought, right, let's try and harness that if we can. You know, we do need results, so I'm not going to change my system in terms of the actual position to the pitch for the players, but what I might do is adapt how we go about trying to score these goals. And so I think, credit to him on that front. And I agree with you. I mean, I think maybe an element of chaos is good. Well, I enjoy watching some chaos football, and people certainly got, I think, a little bit familiar with the way of playing. You know, pass it out from the back, pass, and you know, baiting the press and all that kind of thing. So I quite enjoy a goalkeeper just get it up and let's see what comes of it. You know, it did remind me of Schmeichel back in the day when I've watched games from, I think I watched the 2-1 against Liverpool in the FA Cup from '99 just randomly the other day, and it's a very fast pace, but it's a lot of goes back to Schmeichel and he kicks it, and I think that shouldn't be. It's not a. I think what Arne Slot was probably getting at with his post-match critique was that that's somehow a lesser form of football than a kind of
this has been
passing strategy. But actually, we all, I think, enjoyed the game on Sunday. So I don't think that should be a bar to what is classed as quality football, and particularly when you're hitting the ball as cleanly as Lammens is. I mean, Schmeichel was actually sat a couple of rows in front of me, and he seemed to be enjoying it. So, you know, and he's been part of the most successful team that United have had in history. So I think that's a fair gauge of what's acceptable from a club and a team. You obviously want different elements to it. It needs to be finessed in different ways, and that won't, to your point, suit every single game. It probably will suit Brighton, to be fair, though, because obviously they do like to press high. So if you just take that out of the game, it'd be interesting to see if Fabian Hurtzler comes up with something to kind of guard against that. I think it's an interesting development in football, particularly this season. You've seen, haven't you, with Brentford, the long throws. I know that everyone's having a long throw now. I'm not sure Dallow's ever really going to hit that long throw in a way that really troubles defences, but at least he can get it in there. And you know, it's when you've got Maguire and De Ligt in the mix, you know, you never know what can happen. So I'm looking forward really to seeing what else Amorim can add to this team,
because it's interesting, like I was saying, I think that everyone became so obsessed with emulating Pep or emulating that high pressing style, and I think obviously things go in cycles in any sport, in any, you know, music, fashion, whatever it may be. I feel like once you got to the point where newly promoted sides were pressing and had this like intense man-for-man high press, you think, well, the benefits of playing out from the back are now getting smaller and smaller because you're not catching anyone off guard anymore. You barely even get to hold possession, even on your own 18-yard line, because you're being pressed so high. This element of control, actually, it's just, duels and chaos on your own box. So I wonder if going over the top of that is almost like, 7 or 8 years ago, you had a handful of managers, maybe half a dozen or so or more managers that played more old school, more kind of sit back and let them come onto you, kind of, not to be too disparaging to the likes of Allardyce and Dyche, but that style of football. Whereas now that's by far in the minority. So you think we're going to play from the back into just 7 men pressing us, why would we do that?
Yeah.
I wonder if the next phase actually, if everyone's pressing, if you're coming up from the Championship and you're pressing as good as anyone else in the league, we're just going to go over the top. Because then we can control, if it's going to be chaos on our 18-yard line, well, it might as well be chaos on the halfway line. Well,
actually, it then became an advantage for United because they had the players in position to take advantage of those loose balls, whereas Liverpool had like 4 men up and they had, whereas United had 4 kind of midfielders gathered closely by to sense where it was going to land. And that obviously takes a certain skill, anticipation. It takes, good headers of the ball in your own sense, because obviously it wasn't just the second ball, was it, from Van Dijk? It was then Maguire putting it back and Van Dijk again. So you do need some decent guys to return it if it does come back your way. But it then became an advantage to United. So that makes sense. It's a logical choice by Amorim and a smart one, and obviously it worked.
Yeah, I mean, sorry to talk so much, by the way, but
I love hearing you talk, Joe.
Thank you very much. I just think, I feel as though we're seeing that shift now, and I think that, do you remember like 5 years ago when you saw someone with a mullet? It was like, look at that, that is sensational. I ain't seen one of them in ages.
Did you ever have a mullet?
I never had the mullet. I had the faux hawk.
Oh, okay.
Sort of 2004-ish.
What's a faux hawk?
Kind of, it's like a mullet, but you're not quite as into it. It's not quite as much length on the back.
Right.
Remember, like David Beckham, 2003-04?
Yeah.
I had one of them.
The World Cup kind of Beckham almost.
Yes,
okay.
06, 05, that kind of era.
Yeah.
But now when you see a mullet, a dime a dozen. Do you know what I mean? Especially in the northern quarter around here that you can't move from.
Yeah.
I feel like that's high pressing teams. 5 years ago, when Bournemouth were like, or Brighton were like, we're doing the same thing City are doing. Everyone was like, unreal. Whereas now, everyone's high pressing. That's all anyone does. So the next phase is, how do we beat the mainstream? Not, joining that and just doing what everyone else does. Shave it all off. Short back and sides is going to come back in. Maybe you go long on the sides, short on the back and top.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to picture that.
Uncle Phil style from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah.
That kind of vibe. Maybe it's just that, like a monk.
Right,
I may have gone too far. But do you see my point? Now you need to outthink what everyone else is doing rather than joining it.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is, Laurie, I think
you're thinking of getting a mullet.
I'm thinking of getting a mullet.
Right.
Is it too late though? Is it hit critical mass? No. What I'm trying to say is, I wonder, not whether it's necessarily Amorim particularly, but I think we are entering the next stage of football tactics, and I think Amorim feels more in line to look good in that sort of arena than the one of the last sort of 4 or 5 years. But we'll have to wait and see. And obviously we've won 2 games in a row now. I'm saying that Amorim's the future of European football tactics. I'm probably just talking out my arse. However, let's talk about something that is definitely real. Senne Lammens.
Okay.
He seems real.
I have seen him in the flesh.
You've seen him in the flesh. You were speaking to him, or
not quite eye to eye, because obviously he's
how big is he? Sort of my height, 6'4".
6'4", yeah.
Big guy.
You actually felt a bit bigger, to be fair, when we were coming in here today, but
we'll cut that out.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I'll take that as a compliment. You wrote an article about him and the importance of shutting out noise from the rest of the club. Everything I hear about this guy is exactly what I want to hear. He's no trouble. He's quite quiet. I don't want to say boring, but he's not. He's got an element of calmness and reservedness to him. Is that what you felt from speaking to him?
Yeah, for sure, yeah. I mean, he came through the mix zone at Anfield, wasn't obligated to speak to us. So the mix zone is always a bit of a hopeful situation. I can't imagine at Anfield previously many United players have stopped. I mean, maybe the last couple of years, obviously drawn the last couple, haven't they? But anyway, it felt like an occasion when players might stop for you. Anyway, so credit to Steve Railston at the MEN. He said, send any chance for a few words, and he quickly checked with the guy that he was with, sort of United staff, and they were like, yeah, if you want to. And so he came across and was like, this feels like a good moment for me to speak. Not in a sense of I've achieved anything or, here I am, having a victory lap. It was more just I've entered this football club. It's been a good start so far. I'm just going to introduce myself, should we say, to the United fans a little bit more than what we've had already. And I was impressed by him because he's 23. He's come from Royal Antwerp to Manchester United to Anfield, to the eyes of the world on him, to an occasion that is tense for both managers and both sets of players. And he has been as calm speaking to us afterwards as he was on the pitch, where analytical, I think, was a word that I would associate with him, because to the point of the game plan as well, him being such a focal point of the game plan 2 games in. I know maybe you might think it's a fairly straightforward thing to kick the ball long, but actually it does take some accuracy. It takes some judgment of distance and right and left foot. Sometimes it wasn't always perfect for him. So I think that Amorim's trusting him for that says quite a lot. And I've been sort of wondering what that sort of relationship is like, because obviously Amorim probably advocated for Emi Martinez in the summer. Instead, I think everybody decided to go for Lammens, as a younger profile goalkeeper, with the hope that he would become number one. Not necessarily he's going to come in straight away and be number one, but he's obviously had this chance after Altay Bayındır, not being great against Brentford, and prior to that already having some mistakes. It needed to change anyway, so you might as well give this guy a chance. But the way he's seized it has been pretty remarkable, really. And I know it's only 2 games and he's not had absolutely loads to do, but just that sort of ability to he just looks the part. He gives that aura of somebody that feels like he could grow into this for a long time. I sort of wondered that with the Salah chance. I know Salah's been hit and miss, really, hasn't he, at the start of this season. Something's not quite right with him, but the fact that he was able to kind of charge out and narrow that angle, and Salah just sort of snaps a shot wide, it was very unlike him, and that's interesting to me. Also, the Isak one, he's one-on-one. It was a decent connection by him, but Lammens stood up well to it. He didn't close him down. He kind of stayed on his line. So that'd be interesting to see as more instances like that come. Obviously, the game against Sunderland, there was a couple of perhaps nervier moments when he did come off his line. There was a chance that he caught, wasn't it, and kind of fell back on himself at Anfield, and that was maybe a slight misjudgment, but he claimed the ball still. So, little signs of encouragement. But speaking to him afterwards, his ability to say, the right things, I think, was important, and not. He broke it down with the direct kicks, in terms of what you said there, going man for man with Liverpool. Let's be real about this, was kind of his message, and I think that's a maturity that is good to hear from. And shutting out the noise. He said his social media's gone crazy since signing for United. He knew that was going to happen. They told him that from the club point of view. But he knows he's got a circle of people that he trusts, that he's been with for a long time. That's what he's going to keep it to, and obviously the people at United that he needs to take instruction from. So just all in all, he said he was going to celebrate by having a meal with a friend that was over from Belgium. Pretty chill kind of guy. So I think that's what you want. It's been fun to a degree having Andre Onana, who's a different kind of goalkeeper entirely, because you get these goalkeepers you like. All goalkeepers are a bit crazy, aren't they? And he certainly was on that spectrum of feeling a maverick and anything could happen. I think Lammens is from the different part of goalkeeping where it's sort of, you have to stay steady whatever happens in a game, because the next chance is the most important one. And I was just really impressed by his performance, and then also the way he spoke to us afterwards.
I always feel like Onana and Barthez are somewhat near each other on that scale, and then you're hoping, and so far it looks like you've got a more sort of Van der Sar-like demeanour in Lammens. Obviously, quality we'll wait and see, and it'd be a dream if he was anything like Van der Sar. But they're opposite ends of the kind of your calm, composed, sort of chess playing goalkeeper, and then you've got your sort of exciting fun. But like you said, the eye test is weird, because I always think with the eye test it can go either way, can't it? Because some players look great, and then you think, actually, what are you doing? And then other players, they think they're a bit unorthodox. I'm not sure about that, but they make it work. I do feel like with keepers, though, the eye test can be a bigger thing, because of all positions, it's the one that's most about your mindset and how you feel, I think, as a player, and also what the opposition thinks of you, because how do they approach you from set pieces? What types of shots do they take? Do they not want to shoot from there because they think, well, he'll save it, he's too good, and then they hesitate and they get tackled. I think with a goalkeeper, what you project is more important than any other position. Maybe centre-back's up there as well, but I think the fact that you look at him and you think, kind of, if you squint your eyes, there is a sort of Courtois-shaped sort of look to him. He has got this stillness about him, this coolness. I think I love that.
You're having him?
Yeah. So far, anyway. Obviously, it remains to be seen. But 2 games in and no calamitous mistakes. It's a strong improvement, isn't it?
I think he has been helped by the way that they've just said, just go long with your kicks. Like, so he's not having to cloud his mind. With sort of the shorter passes. So he tried to roll it out, didn't he, quickly to Ahmad in the first half, and Cunha kind of got in his way, and he had to kind of pick it back up, and the crowd were appealing. I don't actually know what the rules are on that, to be honest, but it was...
Well, it would have been a back pass, wouldn't it, technically?
If you're allowed to drop it and pick it up again, aren't you?
But I think did they think he threw it into Cunha
and then it comes back? Okay.
So, maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
Michael Oliver's very adamant, big cross with his arms to say no infringement.
Yeah.
And then there was another one where he kind of went shorter with the rollout. Second half, it ended up being to Casemiro, he was getting pressed and he had to pass it first time round the corner with his back to Liverpool's attack, and it went in between, and Mbeumo and Ahmad back to Liverpool. So nothing came of it, but equally nothing bad came from it. So, but yeah, ultimately he just sort of thought, I'm going to clear my mind. This is what I've been instructed to do. I agree with this. It makes sense for me. I've got good kicks, so just let's keep it clean. Yeah, as it goes on, it'd be interesting to see if United do add more elements to that, because to your point, I guess teams will see what United are doing and just trying to adjust to that. So can he go shorter then when teams are setting off?
Yeah, flexibility, like we said before. I want to talk about United and Amorim and his relationship and sort of position in the club at the moment. Before that, I want to talk a little bit about transfers, because we're at the end of, or coming to the end of October now. The clocks go backwards next week.
That's good. We get an hour then.
In bed we do, but it means that it's dark at 4:30.
Right, yeah.
It's my least favourite time of the year. Between the clocks going back and
I would have had you down as an autumnal kind of guy.
No, I like light.
You like light, okay.
I don't care about heat, but I like light.
Okay.
Moth style.
Right.
Yeah. And also if you flick me, I just turn to dust like a moth. But yeah, because we lose an hour of light at the end of the day, and it's still getting darker every day. At least once you get to the 21st of December, it starts getting brighter each day.
Is this some kind of analogy for United? The storm, I never had a storm, the dark times, the light.
Maybe it's sort of
forward,
directly, inversely proportional to United's fortunes.
I don't know what that exactly means, but it sounds good. So let's go with that.
As the days get darker and shorter, Manchester United's future gets brighter and longer.
Perfect.
Exciting.
Great.
But we are getting to that time of year.
Yeah.
If you're going to get anyone transferred in January, you must be thinking about it by now. We've only got 2 months until it's January, essentially. What's your understanding of that market? Because there seem to be, obviously, one is Kobbie Mainoo. That is a point that needs addressing, because he was up for leaving in the summer, has played minutes in most games, but clearly isn't a starting player for Ruben Amorim. United were interested in exploring Carlos Baleba in the summer. Again, does that mean that we want a midfielder, especially if Mainoo wants to leave? Is there a chance that we bring someone either short-term or long-term in January? And also, we've got AFCON as well, which is something that I think a whole right-hand side, Mazraoui, Ahmad and Mbeumo, will all likely be going to that. I think maybe even are confirmed to be going to that. We don't know who will be selected, I suppose. That right-hand side is about to be decimated. Is there a chance that we look at that and go, we're going to need a right wing-back or another attacking midfielder potentially in January, as far as you're aware?
When I last sort of checked around, I didn't sense that there'd be anything major in January.
Okay.
I think certainly the Kobbie Mainoo situation is a live one where he has already asked to leave on loan before the summer transfer window closed. Is he getting enough minutes at the moment? You've got to think not, right? Because he's coming on in games rather than starting them, and I think that he is somebody that would like to play much more regularly, just for his own career, but also then you know every player has got this World Cup in mind, haven't they? An attempt to break into that, and maybe that feels distant for him at the moment. But he did start the last tournament final, so for England. So I wonder, if it stays this way, I could certainly see real significant conversations taking place about Kobbie Mainoo leaving on loan. Whether that then actually happens, let's see what comes up. But he almost didn't come on against Liverpool because Amorim had made the two subs to start the second half early on, with Casemiro and Ahmad coming off. Then Sesko was sent on, wasn't he? So you had like the two substitution slots that you're allowed, and then pretty much straight away Yoro and Heaven were going to warm up by the touchline, and so I was thinking, okay, well that's all your subs then, isn't it? 5 subs and 3 lots of changes. As it happened, they kind of warmed up for quite a long time, and then so they were all stripped with bibs on, and I sensed that it would have been then, so Yoro for Maguire probably, and Heaven for sure, with the maybe coming into the central defensive part. But then Liverpool equalised, so then Amorim changed it to Kobbie Mainoo instead of Heaven, and then they were actually on the touchline, weren't they, when United scored the second, and then he kept it with those two, because I think Fernandes was done at that point, so I think he realised he needed to send on Mainoo. So maybe if Fernandes does show any signs of needing rotating, I mean, it sounds crazy, doesn't it, when he's played so much football and they've actually got less football this season than ever before, but maybe, I don't know, that then Mainoo gets a bit more of an opportunity, and that changes the picture a little bit, but no, I think that if that happens and he does go out on loan, then I think United would need to replace him, so maybe that would be, I don't know, another temporary signing. I don't sense that they're going to go and spend big in January, because they've already spent big in the summer, and finances, I know I say this every year, but they do have to make sure that they're not in breach of PSR, FFP. They're committed to that, and even just in the cash levels, we know that they had to delve into the revolving credit facility to facilitate these transfers in the summer. So even just on a purely, cash in hand basis, that is a difficult prospect to imagine in January. So that's kind of my reading of it. But to your point, the AFCON is going to be a real interesting period. How long are Cameroon going to be in it? How long are Ivory Coast going to be in it? Morocco. So you've got these important players. I suppose you've got Dalot as a right wing back. Would Martinez be back at that? Well, Martinez will be back fairly soon. So then, does that free up Luke Shaw potentially to be a left wing back as well as Dorgu? So you've got some options there, or even Luke Shaw on the right, maybe. I mean, I'm sort of spitballing out the top of my head here, but and then you've got Mason Mount and Cunha, and maybe that's how Mainoo gets a bit more of an opportunity if Bruno Fernandes is pushed further forward. But it's a really interesting aspect. I don't sense that the AFCON is going to be a pivotal tournament. They've known in advance that this was going to happen at this point, so they would have made adjustments in the summer if they'd needed to. I feel like they've got the squad to handle that at the moment. Interesting, isn't it? And do
with that approach with sort of looking at Baleba in the summer, it seemed to be the case. I know you and I think obviously your colleague David Ornstein reported that quite heavily. It seemed as though, theoretically anyway, that United were thinking of doing that last summer, that it wasn't obviously maybe for the future, but can we sneak it in this year? Does that imply that there are funds available within this sort of tax year, or why do you think it was potential then and less likely now?
Good point. I mean, I think that it's just all about how much are you willing to, I don't know, strain your finances. So when it turns to autumn, Joe, I know it's your least favourite time of year, but do you ever think about getting some new clothes for that wardrobe at that time?
Saying I need a new scarf or something?
I mean, you do wear that Carhartt jacket an awful lot. So I'm just thinking maybe you could mix it up.
Bit of a diss, but I'll take it.
It's a very nice jacket,
it's a fair point. And I've got 2 different ones, but I can...
Have you?
You could argue I overwear both, yes, sure.
Maybe you're exposing me here as a less discerning eye.
No, that's fair.
You're
right. So what you're saying is, forget all this United stuff. Yeah. We can come back to that. What do I need then? What's really going to make me pop this autumn?
Earmuffs.
Muff.
Yeah.
Classic. Okay, so maybe I need a new jacket.
So if you wanted to, you could just go and slap it on the credit card, think about it another time. That's basically now. If they felt that a deal was there to be done that they thought was within the right price range for a player of his type, maybe they would have done it and kind of figured out how to fund it later. So with another sale, perhaps, or with some kind of reconfiguring of the credit facility. So that was always a possibility. So I don't know. I don't sense that the way. Listen, if they start to have a downturn again, maybe that changes things a little bit. But if they're able to kind of get good results and be in the picture for Europe anyway, do they really need to go and stress their finances with something in January like that? It'd be interesting though. Right? I mean, Baleba, when we were reporting this in the summer, obviously Brighton didn't want to sell him, I guess, but also had a view of him being in the kind of Moises Caicedo price range. United originally thought if there's a chance to do it in the João Pedro price range, we're open to that. It was said to me at the time, maybe this is actually the best time to sell Carlos Baleba from a Brighton point of view, because he's had 2 fantastic seasons already, and this might be the highest point that he reaches, and this season he's obviously not hit those same standards, so you're sort of thinking, okay, would that change a little bit? I know that he played at the weekend against Newcastle, I think played well, right? So I think that suggests that maybe he's come through that turbulence, whatever's going on from the summer, that maybe he can now re-establish himself, and maybe he will go on to have a great season, and then the price is again, a big one. But it's a fluctuating dynamic in the transfer market, so maybe United just bide the time with it and see how it finishes this season.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And also the odds of getting them, you're probably going to get them cheaper in the summer, because it's not halfway through a season, you're not taking a team's best player, so you're probably going to get better value for someone in the summer. So
another few months off his contract.
Yeah, that's another good point as well. On the sort of wider picture with Amorim then, because I think the last couple of times you've come in, we've spoken, or certainly last time, about where he is, how safe he is. I think 3 really big things in a row. The Sunderland game, a convincing, let's be honest, very controlled game against Sunderland. There was no point where Sunderland looked like winning that game, not for any moment of the game. Then Ratcliffe comes out and says this sort of 3 years thing, whether that's just, politics, that's, a bit of spin. It doesn't almost matter, does it? Because he has said it.
Yeah.
Then beating Liverpool, it's the first time that Amorim feels like he's got a genuine kind of momentum, a sort of role of support going. How safe and how kind of do you think he's viewed by the seniors and the people above him right now?
I mean, I always felt that they wanted to continue with him for all the sort of attention on the results, which is absolutely fair, and the kind of form that they were in was parallel to a team fighting relegation. So you can absolutely understand the massive scrutiny that was on him, and that he even accepted. It felt like he was aware of the reality of the situation. But behind all that, and even going into the Sunderland game where we were saying that defeat wouldn't be terminal for him, it felt that you've got the backing from Sir Jim Ratcliffe, at least to see how the season goes. It's his first season with the transfer market. That's kind of what we've always wanted from the hierarchy, with managers, to kind of give them that chance to flourish if they can. Obviously, it got to a very bad point. Finishing 15th was on nobody's agenda and is beyond what I think anybody would have expected, even in the worst scenarios. But but I think that they still felt that this guy was somebody that they wanted to get behind, and Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox, as the chief executive and director of football, aligned with him and aware of say Amorim goes on to be a success now, and they've stuck by him through real difficult times. They are massively enhanced. Their reputation then become, okay, you know what you're talking about. That faith is justified and restored. Obviously, it can go the other way, and then alternative questions might arise. But I think between them, they always, it seemed to me, wanted to support him. And so now it'll be the same kind of case where they've got a bit of breathing room, haven't they? Now you're not going to have these kind of really intense, questions around Amorim's status for a little bit of time. I know that we're a little bit hostage to fortune with Brighton coming to United. They've won at Old Trafford the last 3 times, I think.
Yeah.
So, but then again, if they go and beat Brighton, having had that record against them, then that's another step towards thinking, okay, this could work. So, yeah, I've been always of the belief that they wanted to give him time. Clearly, that gets tested if results are bad, and you sort of it's all very well and good saying it publicly, but when reality bites, you don't know. So thankfully, we don't have to ask that question, I don't think, for a little bit yet.
That's great, isn't it? Have you ever heard of the Facebook page The Dodo?
No.
It's one where it's basically every single video starts with someone finding a dog in the wild that's covered in scabs and it's got no hair on it and it's on the cusp of dying, and then they take it in and they sort of like put some suds on it, give it a little cracker, and then they show it 3 months later when it's running around the back garden. It's still a little bit thin, but it's got hair and it's having a nice life, and everyone's sat there crying. Mums love it, right? Is that almost what's happening with Manchester United, where because how bad it was under Amorim, because of how threadbare our fur was, because we weren't eating for a while, it was really worrying. It was touch and go for a minute there. That if it does turn around, there is almost a stronger bond with the manager
Yeah.
and with this sort of group of people where it's like, actually, we went from 15th, we took back all the deadwood, we cleared it right back to nothing. And then if you could push on for Europe or push on for top 4 one day or who knows, challenge for a title, it will almost feel as though it's entirely his and Amorim has kind of built things properly rather than managers in the past where it's come in, we finished outside of Europe, right, sack the manager, new manager gets 250 million and you've got to get European football. And inevitably, they tend to. United managers in their first full season, I think all of them have got European football. And then it drops and then they don't get back and it gets dropped. I almost feel like this is like, you know what, forget that. We're stripping it right back. We're going to start from the bottom. And if you do build up, it'll almost feel even more kind of permanent or even more optimistic than ever before.
Yeah, because you've been through the hardest times, right? And malnourished United is kind of what you're getting at. And now, could they actually become a lovely dog, full of happiness and jumping around?
No mange.
Okay.
None of that.
Yeah.
All gone.
I mean, listen, he wants them running like mad dogs, didn't he?
Yeah.
Amorim. So I can see the synergy there between this little metaphor you've got going on. But seriously, I think that the fact that if they can come through that, and they actually are then successful, that surely gives him that credibility with the players. It gives him a real trust with the hierarchy. I think that's an important aspect as well. And that then allows somebody, I think, to work with more comfort in that knowledge and that confidence, and it just totally changes the dynamic. And again, we're perhaps getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because it's been 2 wins in a row, but I think you're allowed to sort of hypothesise about what this could turn into if it is on an upward trajectory. I suppose the one point is that they have, and he mentioned this in the game, in the post-match press conference after the game, Europe is the aim still. Yeah. I think all the club is geared towards that. I don't, in terms of finances and things like that, budgets for upcoming years, I think they need to get into Euro really. So it'd be interesting to see if they don't do that, or if they lose touch with it. Does that faith sustain? But yeah, I think that clearly Amorim is he quite enjoyed himself in the press conference yesterday. Saying continue your narratives. On Sunday, continuing your narratives about us being terrible or about me being sacked by Christmas or whatever it is, and then we can kind of work without the pressure of the expectation of qualifying for the Champions League, which is what the question was.
Great. Right, Laurie, thank you as always for coming on.
Joe.
It's been wonderful.
Absolutely wonderful.
I feel like we've not even... It feels like this has always been empty here, doesn't it? We've not missed anyone.
We should have had just an empty chair, I think, actually, for Jay, just in recognition. Where is he on holiday? Are we allowed to say?
I think he's in Tenerife.
Oh, is he? Oh,
yeah, so
nice.
he's not far. He's not that far away.
Oh.
Could always get him back if we needed, but
we could have patched him in from his sun
lounger.
lounger.
I think it's about a 3.5 hour flight, so maybe we couldn't have had him on. To be fair, I think he's in the air now.
Oh, okay. So he's on his way.
He's on his way.
Well, he's got this to watch when he lands.
He can land and watch this straight away.
That's the first thing he should do.
I really think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take the family. Right. Gather around the iPad, kids.
Yeah.
We're watching Inside United. Thank you as always, Laurie. Make sure you check out the description where we'll have all of Laurie's recent articles and a link to all his socials and Talk of the Devils podcast as well. Always fantastic on there. This has been Inside United with Laurie Whitwell. Thanks for watching.